It's a beautiful 20th day of April 2023. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Neota Igbe.
If only you could smell the aroma wafting through my nose this morning. The smell of coffee is always a good one early in the morning. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusuf.
And we hope you've grabbed your cup of coffee and you're ready for our ride on Sunrise Daily. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
And now that Neta has taken over the
Date check.
How about I add the day? It's a Wednesday, no, it's a Thursday morning. I'm Ayo Makinde, welcome to the program. And one other thing that's been repeated over time by the Vice President in particular is his call on us to focus on ethics that are of value to us as a nation. It seems we talk about that quite often here on this program as well, drawing our attention to Section 23 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. But listen to the Vice President yourself.
These elections witness the exploitation by political actors of the fears and anxieties of people about so-called outsiders. Any attempt to deny people the right to vote in any locality on the basis that they do not belong in that place is condemnable in the strongest terms. Social integration is one of the highest ideals of our Constitution, which guarantees every citizen the right to traverse the length and breadth of this country without hindrance and to settle in any place of their choice. It affirms the right of all Nigerians not to be discriminated against on the basis of their identity. Above all, it holds up integration as a priority. The framers of our Constitution did not intend to create an apartheid system that distinguishes between natives and settlers, nor did they in fact create one. They sought to create a civic nation. So it is possible to conquer ethnic or religious prejudice and build a unified nation. And I think that in itself should be a rhetorical question. Can we truly conquer ethnic prejudices, religious prejudices, and build a unified nation? I think we can. But it's a journey, it's not an event.
And that journey began in 1960. But then look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 23. The 23rd section says the national ethics shall be discipline, integrity, dignity of labor, social justice, religious tolerance, self-reliance, and patriotism. Okay, so that's the legislation. Now, what's the plan to activate? Something that we all got to do together, isn't it?
Absolutely, Ayo. The truth of the matter is we are a nation of ethnically diverse people. We cannot run away from that. And ethnic prejudices have run deep in our history from the beginning of time. You talked about the 60s. Remember the wet year times. Remember peculiar mess. So we've had that. Perhaps the only time I've had to ask, an elderly person that whenever did we have a time where Nigerians voted regardless of our fault lines, of our ethnically diverse nature? And they said it was June 12, 1993, when Nigerians voted for one man across board. So what must we do, to reflect, what must we do to begin to think of ourselves as Nigerians rather than, being from one part of the country or the other? I've always talked about the need for heroism. We lack heroes that will truly stand, and inspire confidence in the people, regardless of where we're from. And I think that was started, during this 2023 presidential election. But then again, the need for that to be done and be seen to be done is very, very important, because we find that, one thing is said, but another is done. And I believe that you understand that innuendo. I'd rather not go deep into it. But then we must also strike a balance between heroism and representation. In Switzerland, there's a system of government where, different parts of the country, so to speak, are always waiting to take up governance. We must also do that in Nigeria. There is competency everywhere, so we must be sensitive to the fact that we're ethnically diverse, and there is a need for political representation of all parts of the country at the political level.
Well, especially when, I always remember the first national anthem that says, though tribes and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Has that changed? I don't think so, Nyota and Mapwe.
It hasn't changed because tongues and tribes, or tribes and tongues, still differ. But you see, there's something I do remember consistent, and it's just saying that without vision, the people cast off restraint. When there is no vision, the people throw caution to the winds. There's chaos everywhere. But how does vision come? Vision talks about sight, right? So that means vision comes from the head. So if we do not have a head that sees, we will not be able to move properly. Comes to one thing that John Maxwell will always say, everything rises and falls on leadership. If the leaders do what they're supposed to do, then the people will follow right. If those who are seeking to serve in public office are leading right, have a vision of the kind of country they want to see by the Constitution that talks about the fact that everybody, no Nigerian should be discriminated by reason of where they are from, origin or race or what. As far as they are Nigerian, every Nigerian has a right to live anywhere he or she wants to. If the leaders or those seeking to lead will understand this, that there is one Nigeria, it makes it a whole lot easier. But you see, the other side of it is one thing to see, is another thing to also administer justice and equity. And I think that's where the biggest challenge and one of the things that continues to fuel these fault lines.
You know, Bukola said something about heroes and lacking heroes. I was going to point out that Indomie might not agree with her. Indomie as a brand has tried to honor everyday heroes, people who just do something to save other people. And I don't think that when they do it, they ask what tribe you are before they do it. And I think on a daily basis, we live that reality. You and I, we don't come from the same place, but we have since found values that, you know, unite us together. Well, yes, we're forced to work together because we're in the same company, but beyond that, we've since seen that there have been so much more that binds us together than separates us.
True.
So even on a daily basis, we live out that reality, we live out that existence. We see that all of these divisions only come up during elections, when some other people are about to benefit from the divisions that will be created. I mean, I think it was the former governor of Lagos, Batine Fashola, who was saying that when he hears this conversation about ethnicity and religion, sometimes he doesn't even know what to say because, you know, on a daily basis at the Ikoyi registry, young people, people from all over the country are getting married regardless of their tribes, regardless of their faith. They're crossing all of these boundaries and they're making new families. So why is it that, this rears its head every time there is an election? It is because there is a deliberate ploy. So yes, you've talked about how everything rises and falls on leadership, and it is the leadership class that the vice president has given his address to, and really they must be able to talk to themselves that, there needs to be certain agreeable minimums that, some things that are sacred, not everything be thrown into, in the name of we're doing elections, because after elections, there will be a country to govern. There must be a state for you to govern. And whatever mess you make in the name of elections, you will need to clean it up, after the elections. Oftentimes, they're unable to. And before you know what's happening, it gets worse and worse and worse. But even as we talk about leadership, leadership are at different levels. And at different levels, we bear responsibility.
We all lead.
We all lead. We lead in our families, we lead in our community, we lead in our churches, we lead in our mosques, that's places of worship. So wherever it is that you worship, and if you don't worship, I'm sure that even in your own organization, wherever it is you earn your daily bread, wherever it is that you lead, there will be some people who look up to you. So at that level, are you also bearing responsibility, for what happens around you in terms of how you raise the values, where you identify things that bring people together rather than the things that tear them apart? These are key questions that we need to ask ourselves. If you find that you're afraid of somebody because the person is from a different ethnic group from yours, you need to ask yourself deeper questions. Have you also met people from that same ethnic group who have done things that or people from your own ethnic group have not done for you?
True.
And these testimonies abound on a daily basis. So I don't know. I think that, yes, heroes already exist in some ways. Yes, we might want to find bigger, at a larger level, people who, embody these things, which we already believe. But I think that during elections, we ourselves might, if our leaders are refusing to remind us, we will need to remind ourselves that on a daily basis, I have met people who are not of the same ethnic. And in fact, these things are really beginning to become very, very, I don't want to say unimportant, but if you're looking at priorities, race, ethnicity, religion should really be at the bottom of the ladder. Other values, honesty, integrity, professionalism, those kinds of things are the values that we should play up, and they should really, kindness. Those kinds of values are the kinds of things that should matter more. And I know that on a daily basis, maybe citizens will continue to realize that these kinds of factors matter more than where people are from or what religion they profess.
Anytime we do the football thing, I like to use a football example. Anytime the Super Eagles of Nigeria are playing a game anywhere, or the Falconets, the Super Falcons, all of the football teams that Nigeria has, we don't hear, that is a Yoruba goal that was scored. No, that's a Hausa goal that was scored. That's an Efe goal that is a Yako goal that was scored.
Very interesting to hear that. The day we hear that, then we know all hope is lost.
All we know is that Nigeria scored a goal. Nigeria won the first Under-17 World Cup, made history. That was Nigeria. It wasn't an Igbo man or a Yoruba man or a Hausa man that scored that goal. It was Nigeria that lifted that trophy. Let's think about these things as we take a moment and return for the headlines.
Well, let's take a look at what the Vanguard has for you this morning. That's how we're starting off our paper review segment. Look at this. Tinubu, Fintiri, seek police inquest into Adamawa polls. There's a lead story there, as Fintiri seeks prosecution of criminality behind drama. Apologizes for attack on national commissioners. Why Buhari didn't intervene in debacle, that's according to the federal government. Says president didn't use security against opposition during polls. NSCDC boss summons state commandant. Recall that we highlighted that yesterday, saying that if the police is already moving against its own commissioner, What about the NSCDC, whose commandant was obviously seated as well? So it appears that something is also being done about the NSCDC boss summoned state commandant. Fintiri, others get certificates of return. So that's a picture that you see there. That happened right here in the Federal Capital Territory. The governor and governor-elect of Adamawa State receiving his certificate of return. Take a look at this. Ilda Fitri, Sultan of Sokoto, urges Muslims to watch for new moon. In the meantime, the federal government has declared Friday and Monday public holidays. So page 29 is where you see details there. Take a look at all the stories that you have just on top of the nameplate. DMO dismisses default claims on China loan repayment. That story is also there on page 8. Federal government's disobedience of court orders. Ohaneze fumes over Kanu's detention, ailing health. It's on page 11 of the paper. Energy poverty, over 60% of Nigeria's population lack power. That's according to the NLNG. That's also on page 19. You know, Mr. and Mrs. is there. I see what Mr. is saying to Mrs. or Mrs. is saying to Mr. It's a Thursday, so I'm just going to take it. Mrs. says, I'm shocked that my husband was unnecessarily gentle with a man who was rude to his wife. I expected you to act like a real man. If you have to exchange blows, so be it. And Mr. says, last time I went for a dental checkup, the price of artificial teeth has gone up. There's no need to be incurring unnecessary expenses in this time of inflation. Well, let's leave it there for Vanguard newspapers.
Talk about incurring expenses. The Guardian has a huge one there that Nigeria is going to incur. 40 days to go. FEC approves over 100 billion contracts. 100 billion naira contracts. That story continues on page 6. And you see the pictures there of the president, the vice, the Minister of Works and Housing, the Minister of Aviation, and Customs boss. Below that, athletes, officials panic as National Stadium Lagos floodlight collapses. I do know that there was a period we were talking about the cost of refurbishing that stadium. Well, the floodlights are beginning to collapse. We need to know the reason why. Crack widens in APC over alleged misuse of 30 billion naira zoning concerns as well. That's on page 6. Malpo was the one that talked about expense. Oh, Mr. and Mrs. talked about expenses. Look at money. Money is being unaccounted for there. Crack widens in APC over alleged misuse of 30 billion naira and zoning concerns. Page 6. And that's it from, oh yeah, this one. Excess crude account down to $474,754, says FAC. Check page 15 for more details. And that's it from The Guardian.
Now let's move over to Daily Independent. It's a busy front page that you have on Daily Independent this morning, and a lot of the stories will interest you, but let's just go for the major ones. Malami Hamid frustrating $2.4 billion oil revenue probe that's ascribed to reps. Just one rider here for you. May issue arrest warrants to cause their appearance. This appears to be the second hearing following the investigation carried out by members of the House of Representatives on crude oil theft in the Niger Delta region. And the first hearing, they had asked the Attorney General to appear before the committee, but he didn't appear. So this is the second time. So if you're interested in that story, you'll find them, well, on the inside pages of Daily Independent. Take a look at this one. Why Buhari didn't intervene in Adamawa Guba poll controversy. Of course, we heard the Minister of Information provide an explanation yesterday, saying that the wreck is an a staff of the commission that is bound to generate a debate in the coming days. So watch out for that one. There's this one: Nigerian army deploys troops in Guinea-Bissau. So details are also on page 7 of Daily Independent. So there you have it. Nigerian army deploys troops in Guinea-Bissau, while we already have men of the armed forces overwhelmed with tackling what we call internal insurrection back here at home.
Well, don't forget that Nigeria has always played a huge role in the ECOWAS. There's an ECOWAS army of sorts. I forgot the name that we call them. So
ECOMOG monitoring group.
Yeah. So maybe it's in that same spirit that is happening, I guess. Well, we'll have to wait to see. This Nigerian newspaper has this one on its front page. Of course, also interested in that issue as raised on the front page of the Daily Independent. Again, Malami Ahmed ignore $2.4 billion oil probe. House of Reps Committee issues final invitation. Vows to arrest Attorney General, Finance Minister over alleged payment of $200 million consultancy fees. And I love that kind of consultancy. Right under the picture you see, after congratulating Fintiri, Tinubu seeks probe of Adamawa poll controversy. Find the details of that on page 12. Retirement of experienced officers threatens effective policing in Nigeria. That's ascribed to Arasi. Find the details of that on page 4. Now, for those who are interested in cryptocurrency, look at it right beside the nameplate. CBN slams 200 million naira on Union Bank for breaching cryptocurrency directive. Stories on page 16. The details are right there. That's this Nigerian newspaper today.
Take a look at what leadership has on the front page for you now. Look at this: Cold War in Tinubu's house over speakership, SGF, COS. COS is Chief of Staff. So page 4 is where you'll find details there. Akume El Rufai wants SGF. Bajabia Mila Falike go toe-to-toe for Gambari's job. Betara moves to stop speaker from imposing successor. You'll find details on page 4 of the paper. You have a number of other stories. Well, it doesn't look like looks like the jostling and the lobbying and the...
It's my turn. It's my turn.
Yeah, I can only imagine. How do adults play that out?
Honestly.
Grown men, politicians, I don't know. Page 4 is where you might have an inkling as to how it's playing out. But take a look at this. Fox, $787 million defamation. Or $787 million defamation. Media experts, CSOs, warn against fake news. You know, fake news is harmful, it's injurious, and on the long run, companies eventually pay for it. This is how much Fox News is having to pay to a company which they defamed.
People also pay for it.
Sorry?
People also.
Oh, yes. In many instances, lives could have been lost.
Yes.
And, trust is lost.
True.
So this is something that we need to stay away from. $787 million. You know how much that is? Well, take a look at this. Nigeria has not defaulted in China loan repayment. That's also emphasized by the leadership newspapers. That story is attributed to the Debt Management Office. Tom, not PMB, responsible for insecurity in Benue. That's according to the presidency. Well, these are some of the stories on the front page of leadership newspapers. I will take a break at this point. We'll be back shortly to take you into what it is that we have for you today. Please stay with us.
Thanks for staying with us. Let's stay with that conversation surrounding the controversies that has trailed the announcement of results, the governorship election and supplementary election in Adamawa State, with Professor Sylvester Haine, who is Professor of Political Science at the Lagos State University. He joins us virtually this morning. He's also a Stanford University Fellow on Democracy, Development, and Rule of Law. Thanks for joining us this morning, Prof.
Thank you for having me.
Well, a lot has been said, and comments are endless about the issues that have arisen as a result of the governorship election in Adamawa State. The president-elect, the governor and governor-elect of Adamawa State have both called for probes, and quite a number of people are looking in the same direction. What are the issues for you, Prof?
Let me make a point. That point is that Nigerian electoral scene is full of many dramas, and this particular case takes the issue to a very absurd level, very absurd level. Disruption of the electoral process, the question about transparency, fairness, and integrity, were quite the crisis that we saw in of course, matters have gone to the court, so but it has to do with the propriety of the electoral process, transparency, fairness, and integrity. These are the issues that are at play. Because when you talk about election, the most important issue in election is the sanctity of the term. That when you vote, your vote will count. That issue. And all that played out, tend to undermine those, vital issues in the electoral process.
So with the two politicians calling for probe and several other people are looking in that direction, some civil society organizations have also made the same appeal and calling for probe, calling for prosecution and all of that. Exactly how, do you see that happening? Because looking at Section 25 of the Electoral Act, that's very clear on who declares what results. There is no penalty, so to speak, stated as to what the offense or penalty should be in the event that someone else performs that function. So exactly how do you see that going?
Well, I think that the has provisions, for sanctions against electoral treatment. So the question about somebody else announcing the result and not the announcing the result does not arise. What is important here is that the provisions of the electoral act should be activated, and of course punishment. I can point to the relevant sections, but there are relevant sections, within the electoral act that spell out, punishment for electoral infringement in whatever way, it is done.
Well, Prof, we sincerely apologize to you, our viewers, for the poor audio quality. We're working on it to ensure that you get it better. Well, Prof, when you say the Electoral Act is explicit, I'm actually wondering where this particular infraction is discussed as well as the penalty for it.
I think it's your personal interpretation to say somebody is announcing or performing a task that is not his responsibility. That is a rude intrusion, an abrupt usurpation of the role of another officer. But so you are disrupting the electoral process. You are disturbing stability in the electoral process. And so it's not to explain it away. The law is very very clear, that a process is being truncated, by what they call a clopper, and overzealous official, of the Independent Electoral Commission. In this case, the Resident Electoral Commission in Adamawa State.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, when you put it that way, because that's on the one hand, and we have also seen that in that same process, it's not just the resident electoral commissioner that was involved in this case. The IGP has also literally dealt with, if we can use the term, perhaps begun the process of involving the security officials who are involved. I also understand that the NSCDC commandant has also called to order one of his men who was also at that venue. Exactly, I don't know. Is there anything the security officials could have done? Because the understanding we have is that, as far as they are concerned, they are not supposed to be involved in the process as well. But here we are. Is it in any way for you opening up a completely different tangent in our electoral process that we've not looked at before, or you thought maybe the security officials could have done something that they didn't do at that time?
What the fact that the approach strategies itself, the security officials that were there, actions of their own, meant that they expected that in ways.
Prof, just 1 second. Sincere apologies that the audio is rather difficult to keep. I'm pretty sure that we're working on it right now to make it better. But right now we also have Mr. Femi Falana, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria, joining us in this conversation. Good morning, Mr. Falana.
Good morning.
How are you? Very well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let me ask you perhaps one or two of the same questions that I asked Prof the other time. For you, as far as this Adamawa governorship and supplementary elections are concerned, what are the issues? A number of people and groups of people are calling for probes. For you, what are the issues?
No, it's not a matter of probe. The law is very clear on these matters. Number one, under Section 120, subsection 4 of the Electoral Act, any false declaration of results of elections anybody involved is liable to be prosecuted, and the penalty is 3 years imprisonment, which for me is not stringent enough. Secondly, there is also Section 121 of the Electoral Act, which prescribes 12 months imprisonment for financial inducement with regards to election. Because there are allegations here that some, I think about some of 2 billion must have exchanged hands. So it's not enough for the candidate of the APC, Madam Binani, to deny. There must be an investigation. Could these things have happened in the normal course of events? Was there inducement? That has to be investigated. The officers that were on the high table with Mr. Harry, Yunus Harry, the Commissioner of Police, the Director of State Security Service, and I think the commander of the, I think another agency.
The NSCDC, Mr. Falana, an NSCDC official.
The Nigerian Defense Security Corps. And all these guys are involved in the criminality that occurred. So they all have to be tried under the law. It's not enough for the Inspector General of Police to simply deploy the Commissioner of Police involved, or for the Director of the State Security Service to be withdrawn from that state. We must make an example this time, because this is not the first time that has happened. There have been false declaration of results before now. In 1983, that plunged Ondo State, the Ondo State, into a major violent eruption. In 2003, many false results were declared. In fact, some that could not be declared on ground in the state capital, President Olusegun Obasanjo ordered Professor Morrissey to declare them in Abuja. So we must find out what has happened this time so that this terrible experience will not be repeated in the history of our country. Good enough. The national leadership of INEC moved speedily. Otherwise, the situation will have, the crisis will have been so terrible for all of us, and particularly for the people of Adamawa State. And that is why we must not allow this matter to be handled rather cavalierly.
Well, Mr. Falano, if the resident electoral commissioner can be punished in line with the electoral law, what laws will be guiding the punishment that will be meted out to the accomplices now, so to speak, the police official, the NSCDC official that were with him during that illegal declaration?
By the provision of the law. There's provision for conspiracy. If you conspire with anybody to make false declaration of result, you are liable to be prosecuted. The NTA must be brought in. The NTA televised the acceptance speech of the candidate of the APC. The candidate of the APC has to be brought in because she was party to the whole declaration, false declaration. Otherwise, acceptance speech would not have been ready and be delivered.
But Mr. Falano, you know that she has since denied some of the allegations leveled against her following that declaration, particularly that from the DSS official captured in a video saying that, alleging that he had been bribed with 2 billion naira, so to speak, to compromise the election.
No, my position on that is that the EFCC and the ICPC will have to be brought in to investigate. I'm not accepting the allegation for now. More so, they made the statement while he was being tortured by a crowd. So we need to investigate and get to the root of the matter. So in that case, I'm not accepting that money exchange hands, and that is why I'm calling for investigation. But with regards to the acceptance speech delivered by Madam Beneni, there has to be an she's liable to be prosecuted under Section 120 of the Electoral Act.
Let's take a closer look at the position of the federal government. We heard the Minister of Information say yesterday after the Federal Executive Council meeting that the resident electoral commissioner is a member of staff of INEC, and as such, INEC is the one that's supposed to take responsibility for the punishment of the erring rec. But if we look closely at the process by which resident electoral commissioners assume office in the first place, their appointments have to be approved in a process, starting with the federal government and then with the National Assembly. So how strong is that statement by the federal government?
So with profound respect, I want to believe that the president has not taken an action because he's currently out of the country on a tour of Saudi Arabia, and I think he also wants to perform, the Hajj, but the statement is not correct. Under the Constitution and under the Electoral Act, the appointment of a resident electoral commissioner is made by the president, and the nomination will have to go to the Senate for approval. And that was what happened in November last year with respect to the 19 electoral commissioners appointed last year. Unfortunately, some of us cried out with respect to all those who were appointed at that time. We made it clear that the nomination should be, we wanted the Senate to reject majority of the nominations because it was published, I think, by Sahara Reporter in details. Who has nominated who among the 19 resident electoral commissioners? And we did say that they were not likely to deliver. Of course, this is one of them. So the appointment, INEC cannot go beyond suspending him.
Mr. Falana, are you still with us? Hello, Mr. Falana.
Since he's home. Not very sure.
Okay, he's back.
The president arrived the country by the weekend. He would do the needful by requesting the Senate to remove him.
Now, let's take a look at Madam Binani's case at the court. She has approached seeking judicial review and, in fact, sought an ex parte motion requesting stay of action on the process. What's the strength of this case? Particularly, is it in any way drawn from Section 149 of the Electoral Act, which some are quoting and as a result saying that the declaration by the resident electoral commissioner is in order? Has she perhaps drawn her case from that portion of the Electoral Act?
Those who refer with profound respect, I've read the law rather upside down. Section 149 presupposes an action taken by the appropriate authority. So if a journalist, if a reporter, or any other person has made a declaration, a false declaration of research, are we going to clap for him and say it's covered under Section 149? The point being made here is that there was a returning officer, a professor, who is saddled with the responsibility to make the announcement. Somebody hijacked that position. Somebody usurped his authority and made a false declaration. Section 149 does not come in because the whole exercise is an illegality ab initio. So what has to happen now is that the Nigerian Bar Association has to come in because Sir Harry is a lawyer, a senior lawyer, a former member, he was even a secretary of a branch of the NBA. So the NBA has to write a petition to the Legal Practitioners Disparate Committee for immediate sanction to serve as a lesson because this guy has brought the legal profession into disrepute. Secondly, the IG will have to speed up the investigation. By now, we expect him to have been arrested. And if he cannot be found, they have to get a court order to declare him wanted. 3, all the officers, the security officers that were involved in the charade will have to be investigated and prosecuted. And lastly, the president will have to send a request to the Senate next week that I want to remove this guy. I sought your approval to appoint him in line with the same law. I now want to remove him because he has betrayed the Constitution. He has betrayed the sort of office. And unless we do that this time around, we're not going to get out of this crisis.
What, Mr.
In 2009, in Ekiti State, Madam Adebayo, I think the President Electoral Commissioner there, came out to tell the whole world, my conscience will not allow me to make this false declaration. Eventually, she was corralled into making the false declaration. It took time before it was set aside by the Court of Appeal. This time around, the law, by virtue of Section 65 of the Electoral Act, INEC is empowered, and that was what happened this time around. INEC moved in, set aside the legal announcement of results because people have not appreciated the extent of the criminality. Collation was still ongoing. It hadn't been concluded.
Well, Mr. Falana, just one moment, because I also believe that my colleagues in Abuja would like to come in on this conversation. But just to be clear, I mean, you've already said, that this probe is very important, investigation is important, prosecution is important, and all of that. But you've also cited the fact that we've had these cases over time, and no significant progress has been made, action taken to deter anyone over time. And you've also made it clear that the person to take on this is the IGP. Just to be clear, what should the process be? Just a moment, Mr. Falana, just a moment. You said earlier that the president made the appointment. You've also mentioned a job for the IGP, so to speak. But you also made it clear the other time that this fellow works with INEC. So what should the process of this retribution, if I can use the term, be? who does what first, and what should the sequence be, in order to take on those 4 or 5 issues that you suggested?
They have to be taken together. One, the INEC has done the right thing by suspending him. Please stay away for now, so that you do not further taint the democratic process. It is now left for the president. The president has a challenge to now embark on his removal via the Senate. Secondly, the investigation that will have to be conducted by the IGP. Contrary to the request of INEC, the IGP cannot prosecute him because he has committed an electoral offense. By virtue of Section 145 of the Electoral Act, that duty, statutory duty, to prosecute all electoral offenders, that duty is imposed on INEC. So once the INEC gets the report from the IGP of the investigation, all the suspects will have to be arrested and prosecuted by the INEC. By the INEC. Happily this time around, the NBA has come in to collaborate with INEC. The anti-graft agencies are also collaborating with INEC for us to stop this menace, this colossal embarrassment, and this national disgrace. But again, it is not correct to say that attempts were not made in the past to bring those who engage in false declaration of result to book. I remember, I think last year, 2 years ago, the immediate past rec of Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Mike Igini, wanted to put an end to this kind of disgraceful conduct in Akwa Ibom State. So 2 professors engage in making false declaration of result in favor of a particular politician, a notorious serial breaker of the law. And one has been jailed. One was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. One professor, Okon, you can Google, the name is there. The other one is standing trial. But unless we make it a national affair, and happily this time around, the INEC has decided to ensure that all those who were arrested and some who are yet to be arrested are prosecuted this time around. The police arrested 781 electoral offenders. The EFCC arrested over 100, inducing voters. ICPC made arrests. Other agencies made arrests, including the armed forces. This time around, we are sitting down to say this level of gross impunity cannot continue. And that is why some of us are collaborating with the INEC and the Nigerian Bar Association to ensure that all those who are indicted are brought to book.
Mr. Falano, let me come in here. You've spoken about the president, writing a letter to the Senate to say that he would like to remove the resident electoral commissioner, that the president has a duty to do that at this moment. It means then that you do not agree with Mr. Lai Mohammed, who is the Minister for Information, who spoke yesterday talking to pressmen at the Villa after the Federal Executive Council meeting, when they wanted the stance of the presidency, so to speak, on what has transpired in Adamawa. I think Mr. Lai Mohammed said, he's a staff of INEC, and only INEC has a responsibility to deal with whatever infractions, that the presidency doesn't intervene in those kinds of situations. It will appear that you disagree with him. Is that correct?
Mark, it's not a staff of INEC. He's a public officer. He is an official of INEC. And that point will have to be made very clear. It's like a judge. If there is a strong petition against a judge, and the NJC, National Judicial Council, carries out an investigation, and the judge is indicted, the NJC will place the judge on suspension and send his recommendation to the president, who is the appointing authority. So this time around, the INEC has no power under the law to remove a resident electoral commissioner because he was not appointed by INEC. So it's not like a lawyer in the legal department of INEC or a secretary, appointed by INEC. This fellow or resident electoral commissioner, like national commissioners, are appointed by the president with the approval or the endorsement of the Senate. So if you are going to remove any of them, it has to go through the same process. INEC does not have the power, and if the president does not do so, as soon as he comes back to the country, I can assure you by next week, we have to go to court to ensure that Mr. Yunusa Hari is removed without any further waste of time.
Well, it is unclear where the whereabouts of Mr. Ari is right now, because so far so good. The police say they're investigating. It's not clear whether he's in police custody, whether he's been arrested. Well, we do know that INEC has written a letter they're saying that they're writing a letter to the SGF to ask the appointing authorities to do something about his unwholesome behavior. They've also written a letter to the Inspector General of Police asking them to prosecute, to investigate and prosecute Mr. Ari. Don't forget that the PRO of the police had said that, they were investigating, but they were also waiting for INEC to direct them on how to proceed, and it appears that letter has come so far. But I want to ask you, if you're satisfied with the processes following from when that incident occurred, when that false declaration occurred, to where we are right now, are you satisfied with the processes that have ensued, or do you think that the steps that were taken should have been taken even faster, or do you think that there were steps that were missing from that collision point?
Well, on the part of the INEC leadership in Abuja, this time around, I think for me, so far so good. The challenge before the Inspector General of Police is to have this guy arrested, and if for any reason he cannot be found, they have to get a court order to declare him wanted, because he has committed a very serious offense, which cannot be taken lightly. Secondly, there are other dramatic personnel who are walking free, those who colluded with him, those who conspired with him to make a mockery of the democratic process, in Adamawa State. And now they should be arrested. It's not just about deployment. Now, and I hope, I want to believe that the Inspector General of Police, the chairman of INEC, are taking steps. But I think they also are advised to look at the law. As I said earlier, yes, the police will investigate and turn in a report. The report will have to be forwarded to INEC, because INEC is the only authority under Section 145 of the Electoral Act that is the only authority empowered to prosecute electoral offenders. And this is an electoral offense. So the police cannot prosecute unless there is a fiat given by INEC.
So in this instance, I mean, there's been plenty of focus on the resident electoral commissioner. I know that you've also spoken about the allegation of a 2 billion naira bribe involved here, which Madam Binani has denied. However, you've also pointed out that the denial is not sufficient. So do you think that there needs to be another investigation conducted, saying that she accepted that particular declaration through an acceptance speech, and also moving on from there, she also proceeded to court, citing Section 419, saying that, well, her lawyers say that they wanted an interpretation, that they were not taking electoral matters processes before a federal high court. Never mind that now. The federal high court has said, the lawyer should address them on jurisdiction on the 26th of April. So that matter has been adjourned till that time. But these were the steps that were taken by the governorship candidate of the APC. Shouldn't there be some reprimand in that regard as well?
Well, she has a constitutional right. Madam Benani has a constitutional right to approach the court. And the court has the duty to examine the case. And rightly, the court refused to grant an ex parte order. If that had been done, Adamawa State may be boiling by now. And so the court rightly declined to grant an ex parte application. Go and put the other side on notice. In the interim, the INEC has done the needful by ensuring that the returning officer was allowed to do his work to complete the assignment. Now, Mr. Ali alleged that he usurped the functions of the returning officer because the returning officer was kidnapped. We must investigate the veracity of that statement. Secondly, why the police, the Nigerian police force have been requested by the INEC to investigate the IFCC and the ICPC. Will have to move in to investigate the allegation of inducement to the tune of 2 billion naira, whatever. It's also in the interest of the APC candidate to ensure that this matter is fully investigated. However, with respect to the acceptance speech, the acceptance speech already confirms that she was party to the charade. So she has to be brought in by the police and investigated. How did you prepare a speech if you didn't know that you were going to be declared the winner? Because at that stage, collation had not been concluded. The last point is on the role of the NTA. The NTA televised the speech, the acceptance speech. I expect the NBC to move in speedily and sanction the NTA, because at that time, collation was still ongoing. Just like I've requested the NBA to also send a petition to the Legal Practitioners Disparate Committee with respect to the conduct or the misconduct of Mr. Ari, who has brought the legal profession into disrepute. And unless we take this action holistically, somebody else or some other people will commit the same offense. And that is why impunity, people who engage in impunity in our country must be sanctioned. With respect to people going to court, again, I would like to advise our judges, to behave like the American judiciary. President Donald Trump, filed 62 cases challenging the election of President Biden. 62. Within a space of 2 months, all of them were heard and thrown out. Some of the lawyers who engage in spreading false allegations of electoral fraud were recommended for discipline. Some were forced to the court.
Mr. Falana,
some were compelled to withdraw their frivolous cases. And unless we adopt such approach, we're not going to get it right.
Okay, Mr. Falana, while we're looking at how to speedily dispense justice, especially when it comes to electoral matters, let's look at the process of recruiting some of these people who are supposed to be independent. How do we go about the recruitment process so that we do not have to get to this point where we are asking who should prosecute, who should supervise, who should ensure that this person who took an oath, so to speak, to deliver on a certain job, does that effectively? The recruitment process.
Recruitment of who?
The recruitment process of members of independent bodies like the Independent National Electoral Commission. How should the recruitment process be done?
No, sister, we have to go back to the recommendations of the Waste panel, endorsed by the Amel Lemu panel, endorsed by the Namani panel, set up by this regime. The first one, Waste panel, was set up by the late President Yaradua. Ahmed Lemu committee was set up by President Jonathan. And the Namani committee was set up by President Buhari. All the committees were united in demanding for a transparent procedure for the appointment of electoral chiefs. And what is the recommendation? That the appointments, the vacancies be advertised. And at the end of the process, the NJC is recommended to do the shortlisting and then recommend 3 candidates to the president for appointment. The president would then take one of them, again maybe based on security reports and other considerations, and then send the name to the Senate for confirmation. And that is the only way to prevent the system from appointing members of political parties or sympathizers of the ruling party. So we have to go back to that recommendation.
Okay, in talking about the recommendation, the recruitment process also, when they have been recruited, there is an oath that is taken in the office of the president, for instance. They sort of like swear allegiance to the country and to protect the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But in the Electoral Act, it's also talked about a certain oath that security operatives are supposed to take as it concerns elections. At what point does that oath, both taken by the electoral official and the security operatives as regards electioneering in Nigeria, at what point does that oath kick in?
You see, at the time that you are going to get involved in elections, but the oath, we make a mockery of the oath because there is no sanction for impunity. And that is why I am suggesting that we make an example of all the people involved in the criminality we have just witnessed in Adamawa State, so that we tell the whole world that we're not going to allow such brazen disregard for the rule of law. And unless people commit offenses all over the world. But the difference between countries where the rule of law operates and banana republics is that no matter how high you are, the law is higher than you, like the late Lord Denny once said. In the ongoing trial of President Trump in America, the point has been made that being you so high in that country, the law is higher than you. And we must have the law here is the same. The law is the same. All those who breach the law, who violate their oaths of office, should be prosecuted. And unless you do that, people will believe that I can get away with anything since I'm not going to be sanctioned. This guy did it, Mr. Harry did it the first time. Unfortunately, he wasn't deployed at that stage. But now, in fact, nothing can happen to him. He then, recruited security people to give him protection. In making the first announcement, those security officers have to be brought in. The lady involved that delivered an acceptance speech will have to be brought in. The NTA that engaged in illegal broker will have to be brought in. If we're dealing with channels, if the channels had made that broker by now, the NBC will have asked you to pay 20 million naira or thereabout, or even close down your station for a number of days. So the law must be even. Criminal suspects must be treated equally. Otherwise, Yes, these channels will not broadcast this. So let me go to NTA next time. And that is the only way to run a country under the rule of law.
Well, Mr. Falana, if there's anything that this entire exercise, the Adamawa governorship election saga has done, it has, placed a huge question mark on the recruitment process of resident electoral commissioners. And you have rightly pointed out at the beginning of your commentary that, there were concerns raised at the time prior to the election about the appointment of resident electoral commissioners. So how more rigorous can the process be, to ensure that their integrity, their professionalism checks out, before they take up that office?
Well, you see, in the interim, we simply have to be vigilant. As I did say, information was made available to the Senate last time. Again, maybe I think the civil society didn't do enough. As soon as the presidential aide, I think Madam Monochi, was not approved by the Senate, I think people went back to sleep. Hence, the 19 electoral commissioners, their nominations were approved last year. The Senate simply ignored the valid objections that were raised. And that is why we're in this dilemma. So before we amend the law, we need to be vigilant, because, as it's often said, vigilance is the price of liberty. So all of us will stand up at all times when we have manifestations of impunity.
Well, Mr. Falana, just one last one. And you already began by spading it and saying we all should be vigilant. Now, as you said, it's not the first time we are having such scenarios on our hands, but this is where we are at this time. What lessons can we say has to be learned in this process? There's another election towards the end of this year. What lessons would you say has been learned, and how do we instrumentalize those lessons into our processes so we don't have to come here again?
Yeah. Now, you guys in the media will have to help. For instance, even some of my colleagues are not aware that a professor was jailed in Akwa Ibom last year, 3 years imprisonment. That another professor is standing trial. These are all returning officers. And ASU has repeatedly maintained that he does not have any hand in the appointment of these professors who go around messing up the university system. So for me, let us make an example this time around, so that all those who are indicted in the crisis in Adamawa State, members of the political class, electoral officers, security officials, they all have to be prosecuted, and successfully too, and speedily too. Once that is done, those who are going to manage the elections that are going to take place later in the year will have to be mindful of the fate of those who manipulated the electoral process. I'm also aware that some electoral officers, some resident electoral commissioners have been successfully prosecuted by the EFCC for collecting money and distributing money to alter result of election. Again, the press must help us to publish the reports so that people will know that impunity must end in our country. The last one, most people again are not aware that Professor Morrissey, who left, I think, the INEC in 2011, completed his term in 2011, is still standing trial for money laundering to the tune of 1.3 billion naira. Money allegedly collected to make a mockery of the democratic process. So we need to let people know that these trials are ongoing. The ones that have been concluded, We must let people know that we have made some progress. We must also encourage the ongoing move by INEC and the NBA, Nigerian Bar Association, to prosecute all those who have been arrested. Some of the governors who are losing their immunity in May.
Okay. Well, one can only expect, Mr. Falano, I mean...
The governors who engage the electoral malfeasance under the cover of immunity will lose their immunity on May 29. Those guys will have to be brought in. I know one of them.
All right.
In his state, over 10 people were killed.
Well, Mr. Falano, it's very interesting.
Election petition.
My apologies, because we've completely run out of time, Mr. Falano. You know, one other question that just remains that cannot be answered now is what the role of the people should be in the event that such a thing would attempt to rear its head again. Mr. Femi Falano, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you so much for your time, thoughts, and perspectives this morning.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Well, back right after now, to take this a little further, get another perspective to it. To stay with us.
You like it?
I love it.
So let's get down to business.
You mean transfer to? What is this? That's a personal account. That is still me. I mean, I want to transfer all these millions into your personal account. I mean, I supply the movers and shakers of society. I do things properly. If you do not have a bank account in your business name, I cannot trust you. Better go visit moneypoint.com. Open a business account in your business name. Then me and you go fit talk.
Which one be this money point set?
Whatever it takes to make sure you have a business account opened in your business name, we'll do it as your sure banker.
But why didn't Morifa tell me about Money Point earlier? Where's Morifa?
Open a bank account in your business name with Money Point.
Every healthy family needs the right amount of energy to start their day, but sourcing for breakfast with a splendid blend of nutritious multigrains, big wahala. With the new Kellogg's Gold Grain cereal, you don't have to go through all of that. So now, your mornings can look like this.
Go, 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 Gold Grains. Love the goodness of its multigrains. Grain sets go! With protein and creamy tasty Kellogg's Gold Grains. Grain sets go!
With vitamins and minerals in Kellogg's Gold Grains.
Grain sets go! So go, 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 Gold Grains. Love the goodness of its multigrain. Grain sets go!
Kellogg's Gold Grains is a breakfast cereal fortified with vitamins and minerals from the goodness of multigrains like maize, guinea corn, rice, and soya. Kellogg's Gold Grains.
Grain sets go!
Also available in banana flavor.
Breakfast time is Kellogg's time.
Thank you. We still have with us Professor Sylvester Akane, who is Professor of Political Science, Lagos State University, and Stanford University Fellow on Democracy, Development, and Rule of Law. Prof, again, thank you so much for being with us. I hope we have better audio now. So, now, you've listened to Mr. Femi Falana as well, I presume, and a number of issues that some people have also raised is along the line of given the issues that have been raised about the REC and all of that, and the fact that, you know, he's appointed by the president, and the federal government is saying we don't have any business interfering in this matter because the resident electoral commissioner is a staff of INEC. Indeed, what do you think of that statement made by the Minister of Information and Culture? Is there anything the federal government should have done or could have done, or do now? Prof, can you hear me? Okay. Sincerely, we're hoping that we'll be able to get better audio this time around from Prof, but unfortunately we cannot. Hopefully some other time we'll be able to take him on. Professor Sylvester Akane is a professor of political science, Lagos State University, as well as a Stanford University Fellow on Democracy, Development, and Rule of Law. Thank you so much, Prof. Well, we're back right after now to take on another issue entirely. Do stay with us.
Fighting us, that are fighting the party. It is for us. It's not going to be easy. From day one, I said it's not going to be an easy fight. They're trying to remove all those who have lived off this confusion for years. They're not going to go away laughing. They're going to fight back. It will take time. Whatever happens, we must stay the course because we want to build a new Nigeria. We want a Nigeria where Nigerians will be proud to say they're Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian. Committed Nigeria. I don't have any dual nationality. So this is my own country. And I've said it that even if there's war outside this country, if I'm outside, I'll come back because it's my country. So I'm committed to it and I want them to be committed for it. It is those people that are fighting us collectively who win.
The political party called Labour Party has been embroiled in the leadership situation where the chairman, the national chairman, was suspended by his ward. There are court cases around that, issues, allegations of forgery. It's as if there's a leadership tussle. The NWC met, appointed a new chairman, all of that. Is it true? Is it not true? What is the problem in the Labour Party? What's causing the issues in the leadership of the Labour Party? You heard the party's presidential candidate there, Mr. Peter Obi, talking about the situation, and in his words, it is those fighting us that are fighting the party, but we will not give up because we want to build a new Nigeria. Those were his words. But to help us understand and speak to the issues in the Labour Party and the political space, we're joined by Dr. Akin Oshuntokunmu, DG, Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And real quick, let's ask you, what is your view of the situation in Adamawa, the imbroglio that happened on Sunday after the supplementary elections?
No, well, my opinion of it is that it is the rule, rather than the exception. It is not an aberration. It just happens that they were more reckless this time, They were more daring in perpetrating the kind of things that man did. And of course, you know that if he has the sense that he will be punished or that what he is doing is not legitimate and that his immediate bosses in Abuja would take a stand view of it, he wouldn't do it. He did it in the assumption that, look, this is a culture. This is a culture in INEC. So why don't I do it? There's no way you could have taken that kind of extraordinary step without the implicit belief that by the standards of the contemporary INEC that we have, it is okay to do so.
So you also saw the swift reaction from the INEC?
That's for sure. That's a show. It's a show. Look, recall that the chairman of INEC, and again, I think the public commissioner, Festus Okoye, go and see the video clips of what he said 2, 3 months, 4 months ago, and they reconcile it with what has happened now since February 25. Are those the kind of people, do they strike you as those who stick for, what is right and proper?
Since you mentioned February 25, let's go to February 25 and your political party, the Labour Party, for instance. After February 25, it's as though your party began to shake from within. The national chairman gets a suspension from his ward. There are court cases, allegations, and some of your party members come here to say some documents were forged, signatures were forged, especially to replace candidates in Ebonyi. What's going on in the Labour Party?
There's nothing going on there other than the crisis of the judiciary.
Crisis of the judiciary in the Labour Party?
Yes, please.
Is the judiciary...
Just wait. You should ask me to clarify my position.
Please do.
It is a judge, a judiciary, that made a judgment that is now responsible for creating a crisis in the Labour Party. There was a judge here who, in his discretion, said that Abure, who was the chairman for the primaries of the presidential candidate, for the governorship, for the States of Assembly, a judge thereafter gave a judgment that chairman should no longer parade himself as a chairman. What do you make of that? And look at how and who brought the case to him. The judge is a Nigerian. He reads newspapers like the rest of us. He could have made a more, take a more logical position. It's at his discretion on what was brought before him. How do you explain that? The vice chairman of a party, some people with a party, right, does it mean that if a clerk, in the Labour Party brings a complaint before you, that this is the case, or whatever it is, right, that you are going to, you can give a judgment on the basis of that the party chairman should no longer parade himself. But again, it speaks for itself, as I said. Look, judges have discretion in what to do, what is right and proper. Here we have now come to see that judges in Nigeria, they rely more on technicalities, evasive tactics, scapegoatism to take position, but very crucial position. It was the judge who gave the judgment that is causing the crisis right now.
So you said something
What
about...
judgment, sorry? What
there was a judge here who said...
What judgment are you saying is causing the crisis?
The judgment was that the Abure, the chairman, the extant chairman, should stop parading himself as the chairman of the party.
Yes.
That was immediate.
On what basis was that judgment given? And who were those who approached the judge for that?
You shouldn't be asking me that. You know it. There was the vice chairman of the people who have been trying to subvert the party. Let me tell you what one of them said after the convention, the meeting in Abuja yesterday. He said the presidential candidate, now he has descended on the presidential candidate. That is no longer legal. It's not, subverting the candidate of his own, purportedly of his own party. So it has gotten to that stage. So you look at their motives. What are your motives? If you are interested in the good prospect of the party, as any official, is this what you should be doing at this time?
So what I'm looking at is the fact that, judges don't just give judgment in a vacuum or grant anything in a vacuum. People bring cases before judges and they grant whatever it is that they grant, even if it's based on technicality, based on what is presented before them. Now, we've had members of your political party, the Labour Party, here in our studio. First, we had them on what was causing the division within the Labour Party. Some of them had two different scenarios. One was on the suspension of the chairman from his ward unit. They've since dismissed that. Even from within the party, they say they're not really focusing on that. That what they're focusing on is a matter that borders on forgery, a criminal matter. And as a result of the investigation which they're about to carry out on the national chairman, they've approached the courts to ask him to step aside because you cannot be a judge in your own matter. You cannot preside whilst you are, being investigated. And that's all that they've asked for.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's not a matter of presiding. He has done so, if you want to use that analogy. What I was appointed by the state, he and me made the announcement of my appointment. He has acted the position, de facto, almost 1 year. And you are saying that, look, judges have options. You could have said, okay, let him remain and go on. You can still go on with the court proceedings while he remains. There's nothing that says that you must now tell him to step aside. No, there's another option. And that is fact, wait until you are able to determine whether the issue that was brought with you was correct, whatever the judgment you want to give. You have that option, but he has decided to go for the one that will introduce crisis to the party.
No, but whilst that is, subsisting, whether or not he steps aside, because according to them, that is a subsisting court order that he steps aside. Has your party, have other people within, just to confirm that you are a member of the Labour Party, did you join the Labour Party?
Yes, I don't know why you are bringing
no, just confirm, because there are people who supported the Labour Party but were not members of the Labour Party. That's why I'm confirming that. Looking at the judgment, looking at what has happened or the allegations that are being brought before the chairman, is it brought against the chairman? Is it something that you are concerned about and something that you think that internally can be investigated if a thorough job is done?
Listen, look, it's not a matter of, look at the logic. Judiciary is referred to as the last arbiter, of the common man, expected to dispense justice. Look, law is defined as reason unaffected by desire. Now, if that is what law says, in your own belief, what is more reasonable for a judge, to whom this matter is brought before? Is it more reasonable or logical to ask a chairman that has acted that position up till now, right, to step aside from his position, knowing fully well the consequences that will flow from that? Those who brought the judgment, they are mischief. They are looking for a way, an opening, to introduce their mischief. If the judge now comes, and he should know that, I don't know what purpose it serves the interest of justice and the interest of the stability of the party and that of the Nigerian police, for you to say that the man should now start. The only beneficiary of that judgment are those who brought what they are doing now. And that is subversion. By the way, it's of course, it is instigated.
I'm not clear on this. Are you saying that a judge should be more concerned about the stability of a political party than, looking at the matter before him?
No, look, let me say what I've said, but I think it's so simple. A judge has a discretion to determine what he wants to do. He has the option of going ahead with the proceedings, leaving the chairman there, right? There's nothing that bars him from taking that position. Whose interest is being served by telling the judge, the chairman, to stand up, to stop parading himself? Who? As I said, he has the option, which is, to me, is more logical to take than this one. That, okay, let us go on. We are going on with the court proceedings.
We're talking about a criminal matter.
It's not I don't know. Don't let me. You are putting it's just sub judice. No. So you cannot conclude that it's a criminal matter. I hope you know that.
So that is the problem. So if we cannot even agree on what the issue is. The allegation being brought against the national chairman of your party is criminal in nature. You don't agree that a matter of forgery is criminal in nature?
It's not. Look. You are now acting like the judge itself, giving interpretations to suit a predetermined conclusion, right? It is not for me to determine whether it is criminal or not, and it's not for you either. And it has not been determined. At this stage, it's an allegation. It's a complaint before the court. It has not been determined one way or the other, right? And how, for instance, There's the other option of letting the chairman be. How does that obstruct you from proceeding you want to proceed? You already have all the evidences before you. So the chairman is not in a position to subvert or muddy the water or do anything about what the case that is before you. Not at all. But you chose an option of which any reasonable person will know that you are setting this party up for crisis. And that is what has happened.
Mr. Shutok, Dr. Shutok, let me come in here a bit. Let's look at this court situation. So the High Court here in Abuja says the chairman should step aside and stop parading himself. It's an ex parte motion, in an ex parte motion. A court in Benin has said he should stay as chairman. And the same High Court back here 2 days ago says no, step aside. What's wrong with just stepping aside and allow things go? And allow the court processes go through. Would that not help the party in its getting more stable?
Okay. Step aside and watch. You gave a judgment that the chairman should step aside. Does that imply that anybody, these other people, will now declare themselves as the chairman? Was that what the judgment said? Or that is what has happened? Step aside. He didn't say that anybody, will you secretary or whatever you call yourself, should now declare yourself as chairman of the party. But this is what has happened.
Isn't that what did acting chairman?
What?
Until the matter.
Who is the acting chairman? I hope you are following the case very well. There is no acting chairman. It was vice chairman. On what basis will he become acting chairman? And who appointed him as acting chairman? Who?
Mr. Shintoku, the situation in the Labour Party here, because a lot of people will say that the Labour Party, when it came on board for this election, looks like the hope of the Nigerian electorate. But with the situation in leadership, the tussle back and forth, who's in charge, who's not in charge. When you were talking, you said earlier that a clerk or a secretary brought a document before a judge, and that is what's causing this matter. That you sounded like the judge shouldn't have looked at that document that was brought before, that case that was brought before him.
Why are you deliberately muddling my position? Let me state it again.
I'm not muddling your position. It is what you said.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said he should go on with the proceedings of the court. In other words, what was brought to him, he should go on and deliver a judgment on it. That the criminal has been brought to me. I didn't say that you are the one putting that he was the one. That was his position. That was not to ask him not to act. That's not my position. I can't ask the judge not to act. The way he now acts is left to him. It's his personal discretion. And I'm telling you that he has option. He has an option rather than the one that he took. The option that is not amenable to the kind of mischief that is now going on. What did the judgment say that you, as Mr. Vice Chairman, should declare yourself as acting chairman? I ask you, who appointed you acting chairman? Who?
So if the situation as is now, where the court has said no, a second time, stay away from the chairmanship position for now until the case before me is determined, what do you think is the best option for the Labour Party, seeing that you're pursuing a mandate at the tribunal? Are you not fighting too many battles?
It's not a mighty. Look, in any case, nobody thought it was going to be a tea party. Or understood all along, it's not a sprint, but a marathon. That is the nature everywhere in the world, that you who wants to change society for the better, you better anticipate that the system or the status quo will not let you do it in peace. This is what precisely has happened. Look, forget about Labour Party. Mr. Peter Obi and Labour Party, they are just a personification of the mood of the country, of the younger generation. So it has nothing to... So they are there. Look, take away Peter Obi today. Take away Labour Party today. That sentiment, that mood, that determination will still remain. Somebody else will become the personification of it. This is what... How can you be blaming the victim? Did they ask a judge to deliver a judgment that will set it up for this kind of crisis? You can't be blaming the victim.
I'm just curious. I mean, we've seen a number of political parties suffer their own crisis. The PDP has its own internal crisis. It's dealing with APC at different levels. They're dealing with their own internal crisis. I'm just a little curious as to how the removal or the request or the order that the stepping aside of the chairman of a political party will affect the entire stability of an entire political party. Is it that already there's a matter of distrust of other members of that particular political party? Or is it that the chairman, whatever it is that he is accused of, is beyond reproach and as such must remain while the investigations are going on? Is that what you're asking?
How will you characterize what is happening to Labour Party now? Is that stability? How will you characterize it? That is what I'm referring to. It was fomented. Actually, that is the instability. What we have in Labour Party as of today is instability. It is the exact what you have just raised. That is instability. So it has affected the stability of the party. If it does not, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here asking me these questions. So it is, and I said, of course, I know that the voice is that of Jacob and the hand of Esau. So these are things that, of course, like the presidential candidate said, we are up to the task. It is the same people who are, doing this to the Labour Party, who are doing other things to undermine, the new dawn. What Mr. Peter Obi represents for the country. So that is it. So what we have today, I don't know how to characterize this other than instability. It was fomented, and that is precisely the mission.
Are you saying then, excuse me, that there is no trust for other members of the same political party apart from the national chairman of the Labour Party? Is that what you're saying?
Look, I don't understand why we are flogging this position. By the way, it's not only the party chairman. 3 or 4 other officials of the party were named along with him.
Yes, there was a national chairman and the national secretary.
So I don't know. Look, I don't know what to say. Look, if any member of the party decides today on the basis of the judgment that was given, in fact, he has no reason to do so, to declare himself as the chairman, how does that help the party? And you have seen the consequences of that in Imo State. We have 3 or 4 other usurpers who did their own primaries, quote and unquote, led to candidates. So in effect, in the news, you now have 4 candidates. That is what it has cost in the party.
Okay, just before Lagos comes in, this quick one here. The National Executive Council of the party met in Asaba. Was an invite put out to the ones you say, like...
how can that be the case? Who will invite them?
So how would you resolve this matter if you do not invite your aggrieved members to a table to sit down and have a conversation?
If you want to be a consultant...
No, it's a question.
It's not the question doesn't arise, right? Somebody is trying to boggle your own, and then you are inviting that person to come to your home and decide for you. Somebody who has exhibited bad faith, somebody who is acting from bad faith,
but this
from a position. This is somebody
that worked with you towards the 20
February elections. They didn't work with us for anything.
They were not part of the party for the elections?
No.
Okay, let's get to Lagos, and our colleagues have some questions.
I should know.
Well, thank you, Nyota and Mokwe. Well, Mr. just to be clear, you said the other time that the chairman should have been allowed by the court to remain in office while the processes were ongoing. Is that what you said? Just to confirm.
Please, I said it clearly. So I think you should, get what I said. I don't see how that can be confusing. Okay. I said there are options before the judge who gave the judgment. One is the one that he has given. The other is, okay, look, I'm going to, you chairman, you don't need to step aside while this is going on. I will continue with the with the proceedings as it is, which does not preclude the fact that that chairman may be eventually found guilty of the case that was brought to him. But for you to say that, exercise the other option of saying now that that chairman should stand aside while you proceed with presiding over the judgment is another option. That option is the immediate cause of the crisis that we are in the Labour Party now. Okay. If you don't like, there is no vacuum in nature. Who asked, who removed? So this is what is being exploited. This judgment is being exploited by those who don't believe in the progress, of the stability of the party.
Well, then, Mr. Shutoko, yes, you are. But there are those who would also wonder if that's position. I mean, the judge has chosen its own, but if anyone were to go about the other option that you propose, that the chairman should remain in office, there are those who wonder, how is that different from what happened in Adamawa State? Maybe the resident electoral commissioner should have remained in office while the investigations also go on.
As they say, you stop comparing apples and oranges. How the REC has pronounced a governor, the governor of a whole state, right? We are comparing that to a party, to what is happening. I think that is a parody. It doesn't merit any. They are entirely not on the same level, not at all.
Okay.
If you leave the REC there is first you will be sanctioning what he has done, and he will be there to perpetrate more damage to INEC.
Is that also not a way?
That apply to the situation in the job. What is happening in this? Please.
Okay.
What is happening is that is within the Labour Party, not Nigeria as a whole, not the state, not any state. What is happening for the Labour Party, not for any state, not for any Nigerian public. Okay. I hope I'm clear enough.
Yes, you are. Well, Mr. Shutoko, isn't that also a way of the Labour Party sanctioning the action of the allegations of forgery or perjury being laid against the chairman of your party?
Oh, how do you determine, have you determined that allegation is true? How do you take a step without deciding? Okay, so somebody goes to the chairman of the Labour Party now and says that, look, I've sabotaged, I've done something wrong. The chairman then should take action against me. That's not how justice works. You have to determine whether that allegation is sufficiently proven to be the case before you act.
Even though there are documents, evidences to show that the allegations have some merit.
To you, now, are you the judge? It is for the judge to determine that, not you.
Okay. Now, you also said the other time that the person who is, my colleague described as, who called himself a factional chairman or acting chairman of your party, is the vice chairman. What does the constitution of your party say about who takes office, or what happens when the chairman of your party is not in office? Isn't there a space for acting chairman, or is that vacuum is supposed to be there?
Yeah, you have the chairman of the board of trustees who will then call for a congress or convention to, which is going to happen soon anyway, to elect who will then man the position of the chairmanship of the party going forward. That is the response to it.
Well, Mr. Oshutoku, even I know that you say that there are allegations and they have not been determined by the court, but I hope that you're not discountenancing that there are allegations nonetheless. And when allegations are brought against an individual, serious as they are in this regard, with evidence, as said by Mr. Arabambi on this program, the National Secretary of your party, that they are serious and they must be considered.
Well, and they are being considered by the court.
And as a result...
That's a simple answer to what you have said.
And as a result, shouldn't the national...
And there has not been a determination that the allegation is correct.
And as a result...
It's been determined by the court.
And as a result, isn't it only morally right for the national chairman to step aside while the court carries out its proceedings and investigations are being done to determine the veracity?
What is morally right? By saying that, you already imply that the chairman is guilty. If I'm not guilty of an offense, why should it be morally right for me to accept what you are telling me? I don't get it. So on the evidence, on the basis of bringing an allegation, you ask the chairman or the person to know, is that morally imperative? Is moral imperative for him to accept the pronouncement that he is guilty, to step aside?
Now,
I don't get you.
For the fractional chairman of the party, Mr. Lamidi Apapa, there are allegations also against him that he's involved in anti-party activities, and he's the voice of Jacob, as you have said earlier on the program. What are the allegations? What are the evidences that you have to prove these allegations against Mr. Apapa?
What more allegations do you have than the way he's behaving? Who appointed him acting chairman? And why should you be interested in the subversion of a party? Somebody, the interest is what he is doing. Is it in the interest of the party, in the interest of the stability of the party? How many of them? 3 of them. There was a convention in Asaba yesterday. Are you saying that 3 or 4 people coming to the TV station to announce themselves as acting chairman carries the same weight as the conference or convention of the party in Asaba yesterday? Please, I don't really, honestly.
Because the treatment that you are seeking...
I don't see it.
Because, Mr. Oshutoku, the treatment you are seeking for the embattled national chairman of your party should also be given to Mr. Apapa if you do not have evidence to prove that indeed he has been involved in anti-party activity.
Look, he has. What he is doing presently is anti-party activity. Announcing yourself as acting chairman is anti-party activity. And nothing qualifies more as anti-party activity than that.
But that would seem like a redefinition of anti-party activity. Has it been identified with another political party? And what's the evidence?
Listen, I don't know what you want to decide what is anti-party. What is more anti-party than somebody usurping a position that has no, okay, who made him that? At least the party chairman that you're asking was there, was elected, was there, regardless of the accusations you are not bringing up. But this other man, who appointed him as acting chairman? And if he then goes ahead to appoint himself, how does that not qualify as anti-party activity? How?
Mr. Oshutoku, please confirm that the national chairman of your party, following that second court order ordering him to stop parading himself as a national chairman, confirm that he has sort of yielded his position to a deputy national chairman of the party.
So who is the national? Is the man there, Apapa? Is it deputy national?
Not
chairman?
Apapa now.
Is he? Is not.
Is it true that he has yielded the position to another deputy national chairman of the party?
He has not yielded the position to. He has not yielded the position to anybody, and he has no reason to do so.
And is he going to do that in the coming days?
Why will he do it? In any case, look. This judgment you are talking about, if I want to use the kind of invasive things that you are saying, the courts are of equal jurisdiction.
Because I ask this...
For him to remain. Please, let me finish. Please. The one that gave the judgment for him to remain as chairman is of equal jurisdiction with the one in Abuja that says, no, don't stop parading yourself. So I can also employ that argument if I want to.
I ask this because this was suggested by a national secretary of your party on one of our programs yesterday. And if that is true, or is part of the plan by the Labour Party as a solution to the to the leadership crisis of the party, isn't it the same objective that the factional chairman is trying to achieve? Is that what your own faction is also trying to achieve, to sort of give Mr. Julius Saburi a soft landing amid the allegations that have been leveled against him?
I don't know what's the point you are trying to make. There is no equivalence between the so-called factional chairman, between that and the national chairman, the substantive national. There is no equivalence at all. All right? The person is first, he appointed himself as acting chairman. How do you equate that with that of Abure? So there is no equivalence between the two. It's like you are accepting the argument of those who come to your house, to burgle your house, to violate your presence. Is that accepting what that person, his position is taking. Clearly, that is not logical.
Well, Mr. Shiloko, apparently there have been a number of issues. I mean, as you have also agreed, there is some internal crisis in the party, which led to 4 governorship candidates.
I did not accept that there is an internal crisis. It is an crisis fomented by those who are interested in. In any case, look, the Labour Party candidate in Imo State has come through the primaries and he has been elected as the flag bearer of the party.
But there are 4 of them. Are you aware of that?
So no, not 4 of them. Not 4 of them. So stop pretending as if you don't know what is going on. Okay, what is the local standard of the 4? One is in the public place claiming to be acting chairman. The other 2, nobody has had anything. I've not had anything of them before. I mean, that is the truth. The party candidate has already been selected. Assuming I want to take you on your position, it is only one of them, for instance, that has gone to. The other 2, I don't know them. I've not heard of them before.
I wanted to ask you quickly, do you want to comment on the situation in Ebonyi State, the controversy that emanated over the emergence of a Labour Party governorship candidate in Ebonyi State, which seems to be where all of this controversy has emanated from? Are you aware of it?
Which crisis emanated from?
The case of the governorship candidate who went to court in Ebonyi State. He alleged that he had not withdrawn his nomination from INEC.
I'm not aware of it. That's the short answer to that.
So you're not aware of the basis upon which these forgery allegations have come up because
in Ebonyi too?
In Ebonyi, yes, in Ebonyi.
The same case?
The same case.
Okay, so I've already made my position known on that. And there's no point repeating it. What I've said is that, look, assuming but not conceding that forgery is what is before the court. The court is treating it as an allegation. An accused is deemed innocent until otherwise proven by the court. So, as we speak, Abure is innocent, is presumed innocent until the court determines that he is guilty. That is what I'm saying.
Thank you very much. Dr. Akin Oshuntokun is the DG, Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, and he's been sharing his thoughts with us. Thank you this morning.
Thank you very much.
And just before we go, let's see whether we have any comments. Do we have any comments? Yes, we do. This one is from Olagunju Oladele, and he says, if all political players and law enforcement have different interpretations of the law, then it's probably poorly worded. It is understood that the law is not absolute, which can be complex. However, when prosecutions are upheld, the laws are criticized as political.
Well, oftentimes our laws seem as clear as day, but, there are always different interpretations to it. Law Alpha Cross says, good, the federal government has dissociated itself from embarking on prosecution of electoral offenders. The onus is now left in the hands of INEC to treat the aberration witnessed not only in Adamawa but across the country at the instance of the 2023 general elections.
Well, Mr. Festus Akimboyewa says the REC's brazen efforts to inject chaos into the electoral process in the presence of senior security officers in Adamawa governorship election should concern every Nigerian. If INEC wants us to have confidence in its integrity and our electoral system, it must punish all those involved in what appears to be a fraudulent activity of its REC.
Another one by Law Alpha Cross says, I think it's too early in the morning for the Labour Party to start irreconcilable internal wranglings among members. This ugly state of affairs is only rubbishing the significant electoral fortune they recorded in the just concluded 2023 general elections. Several other comments on our Twitter handle and as well as, of course, on our YouTube thread. You can go there and consume as much as you want. And that's the program this morning. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I am Bukola Koka. Thank you for watching.
Amaokwa Ogun Yusuf, thank you.
And thank you. I'm Neota Igbe. Have a beautiful day.
Millions of people living together in one community, working together in the same trade. We go into their midst, find out how they live and work.
Oh my goodness, food business is not an easy business. I spent more than 35 years for this community.
We tell these stories and how they survive in this economy. Community Report, we tell your story.